Hi, this is Rose, and I'm going to present some slides that summarize this subject, that is individual factors in the learner's development. This model was divided in three main parts: cognitive, affective, and physical and psychological factors. All of these topics show the implications of other theories for English language teaching. So, let's see each of them.
Cognitive influence on language learning is divided in intelligence, language aptitude, cognitive style, feel independence, learning strategies, direct, memory, cognitive, compensation, indirect, metacognitive, affective, and social. The two first points were analyzed through some questions and a mental map. Let's go on. As it was mentioned before, through these next questions were analyzed the topics intelligence and aptitude. How intelligence affects skills on second language acquisition? Intelligence has influence when it is taught the informal way, mainly in the acquisition of some skills such as reading, writing, language analysis, and vocabulary study. Oppositely, does not affect the acquisition of the language when it is taught less formal, communicative, or more naturally, and is much less likely to influence the acquisition of oral influence skills. Why aptitude is considered to be a natural ability to learn languages? Is considered as a predictor for successful language learning. Although it is difficult to define, the researcher Peter Scan states this definition. What are the four components mentioned by Carroll and Sapin? Phonemic or phonetic coding, that is the ability to discriminate and recall new sounds. Grammatical sensitivity, in other words, the ability to recognize the different grammatical functions that words perform in a sentence. Example, the subject and object of a sentence. Inductive language learning ability, which consists of the ability to identify patterns of relationship and differences between grammatical forms and meanings. Example, to recognize that in English, to can denote direction. Rote learning ability, which involves the ability to make associations between native language words and target language words. In other words, in this mental map is summarizing what the language aptitude and intelligence is, as well as researchers that intervene with their theories and definitions. Let's see them. The cognitive style factor was analyzed through an infographic. Let's check it out, the main points reflected here. In the first part, there's some definitions. And the second part shows the specific variables as characteristics made by Brown. In the third part, there's a definition made by Wiking about the dependence and independence fields. And the field dependence and field independence with their four main points. Also, is shown other types or modalities of learning styles. In the topic of learning strategies were analyzed through a reading report that consists in three main parts: definition, the features of language learning strategies, and classification of language learning strategies. The definition provided by Rowe Ellis says, Learning strategies are the particular approaches or techniques that learners employ to try to learn a second language. They can be behavioral, for example, repeating new words aloud to help you remember them. Or they can be mental, for example, using the linguistic or situational context to infer the meaning of a new word. They are typically problem oriented. That is, learners employ learning strategies when they are faced with some problem, such as how to remember a new word. Learners are generally aware of the strategies they use and, when asked, can explain what they did to try and learn something. And the another important part are the features of language learning strategies that are communicative competence, the use of language in an accurate, appropriate, and flexible way. Learners become self-directed and autonomous. In other words, what students decide about their own learning. Expand the role of teachers, in which students are responsible of their learning. Problem-oriented promotes in learners to solve certain situations or tasks. Learners take specific actions. Learning strategies involve many aspects of students and not just the cognitive, and support learning indirectly and indirectly way. Learning strategies are not always observable. That means students' awareness of their techniques used in second language, but not teachers. It is said too, learning strategies can be taught by means of strategy training, which means provide learners with specific instructions and how to use them. Besides, learning strategies may or may not be aware of students of their use. Also, may be flexible since some are common and others very personal. Finally, learning strategies are influenced by many factors as degree of awareness, stage of learning, task requirements, teacher expectations, age, sex, nationality, ethnicity, general learning style, personality traits, motivation level, purpose for learning the language, and that is invariably present in all students. And then the classification of language learning strategy, that is cognitive. Refers some points like practicing playing read a text aloud several times and practice pronunciation of a particular sound. Analyzing and reasoning, for example, breaking down sentences or words into parts. Receiving and sending, in which it indicates the use of dictionary or grammar book. Creating a structure for input and output, used to emphasize the most important points to remind, highlighting, and summarizing. Generalizing, for instance, grammar rules as regard the formation, since simple past or the formation of plural nouns. Making comparisons across languages and note-taking. Memory. Some techniques like applying images and sounds by means of association, creating mental linkage, for example, grouping words in semantic fields, revising notes, and using mechanical techniques. Compensation. Guessing intelligently. For example, guessing the meaning of words in a written text. Avoidance, implying a voice, the use of certain words or expression when it is not sure the use of them. Circumlocution, that is express an idea indirectly with a higher number of words. Metacognitive. Learners are aware and reflecting upon the learning processes, arranging and planning learning, for example, prepare a language learning notebook, keeping a learning diary, evaluating learning, for instance, from errors in grading and self-evaluation tasks, planning in advance what one has got to do, directed and selected attention, for example, concentrating on keywords or in a listening exercise. Social. Learners may ask a friend questions, participate in groups conversation while pretending real understanding, questioning and cooperating with others. For example, with proficient users of the new language and developing cultural understanding. Affective. Lowering anxiety by means of using music and laughter to calm down. Self-reinforcement, which means encourage themselves and be positive self-talk, and also discuss feelings with someone else. Sorry. Communication reduction strategies, in which learners attempt to avoid the problem by giving up part of the original communicative goal, may be formal reduction or functional reduction. The first one avoid roles and second one certain topics. Achievement. Learners stick to the original communicative goal but compensates for the insufficient means. There's two aspects. Compensatory in this field are 2 points, non-cooperative and cooperative strategies, which expose some learners' behavior and retrieval with 3 aspects, waiting, using semantic fields, and using other languages. Affective, that is divided in attitudes towards language learning, motivation for language learning, extrinsic, intrinsic, integrative, instrumental, resultative. All the points mentioned before were reflected in this presentation. Physical and psychological factors, that is divided in age, personality, extroversion, introversion, risk-taking, inhibition, anxiety, tolerance, and ambiguity. For this last topic, was required a personal narrative in which I tried to reflect the points mentioned before, and I found interesting how the narration adapts to each of the points, as in the critical period that mentioned that there's an age when language acquisition occurs naturally and simple as occur with my protagonist, and also the affective explanation, which is an important aspect in the life of my protagonist, because as he was growing up he never lost the contact with language acquisition, and conversely he reinforced the commitment to keep learning and improving English. Besides, my story adapts equally to the points of tolerance because refers to the ability to face new stimuli. As I mentioned it in my narration, when my protagonist was able to interact with foreign people and with different occupations. In general, some aspects are associated with this story.
To conclude, I must say that what I have learned with this subject are tools provided to strengthen my knowledge in English language teaching. With this, we have the opportunity to deepen into topics that maybe we knew superficially, and this allow us to know the most relevant aspects of our students and of us as teachers. Thank you.